been 12 months since the last Paradox Interactive convention, and a lot has happened for you guys. And you basically went through your promises made and broken at the presentation earlier this morning. But regardless of that, it all comes down to the bottom line, and it's been a very good year for Paradox. Could you just sort of close up what 2011 meant for Paradox?
Yeah, we started off with a bang, releasing Magicka in January, and started even joking about the upcoming Vietnam expansion a bit already at the press event before we had even released the original game, and people were like, no, that's not going to happen, you know, that's too crazy and far out there. So that was a bang start of the year, and then we had a lot of other releases that went very well, like Citizen Motion, we had Mountain Blade with Fire and Sword, so Q1, Q2 were terrific for Paradox. Then we had a few bumpy releases as well, but overall I think we've done a good year, and it looks in every possible way that 2012 is going to be even better, so we're really happy with what we have at the moment.
And some of the titles that are here this year were there last year as well, and you sort of extended the production cycles on those ones. Can you touch on why that is necessary, and sort of what you feel that, is that a change that you've done, that you allow these games to take longer?
It is a big change. If you take a game like Salem, it was supposed to be finished already in the end of 2011, but looking at what we can do with the game, what the studio think they can do with the game, and if we only put in an extra year, it's going to be revolutionary is a strong word, but it's going to be a big change from what we've seen in the past with the polish in our games. I think I've played the first 4 games of the year I played myself, and all of them are in good shape. So I think that the QA process that we now implemented gives us the chance to have fewer bumpy releases and more stability. And one of those tactics that we used is to prolong the development cycle when necessary. And of course, I mean, we're in a better financial shape than we've ever been, so we have the opportunity to actually sometimes postpone the release when we can see the huge potential that is under the surface.
You showed off a map of the world where Paradox have development studios going on, and you've always spread out a lot in the world, but it seems like you're focusing a lot on Swedish talent now, and that's perhaps a little bit of a change. Could you tell us a little bit how that came about and what changes that has brought?
Yeah, we've been working with Arrowhead for a few years, and we've been working with some other Swedish studios, but development in Sweden has exploded lately with small independent studios with a lot of talent, with great innovative ideas, but no capital and no marketing structures. So that's where Paradox comes in handy. Being local is really good because we can talk directly to the teams. We can get at an early stage, we can establish a really good cooperation and speak on a daily basis, basically. So that's a very good foundation for a great cooperation as well. So it's no coincidence that we have a lot of development studios in Sweden. We're not planning to close anything internationally, but we're going to grow a lot locally. So at the moment, I think there's around 150 people in Sweden making games for us in one way or another, and it's probably going to be 300 to 400 by the end of 2013. So we have some big plans locally as well.
And you also talked about building these long-term relationships that, you know, they've been going on. A lot of them have been going on for already 5, 6, 7 years. But I actually have a special source for this one, since my mover guy, he actually moved the Arrowhead guys as well. Oh. So I have a little bit of an insight there that they're sort of moving in with you. And could you tell us about how close that relationship is and what that allows you?
No, actually, Arrowhead is moving in with Fat Sharks, so they're not moving into our office, but the office is very close. It's only like 15 minutes walking. So, but the relationship is very close. Our producers are there, feels like all the time, to look at the games, to discuss the games, to see what we can do with the games. So I would say that it's one of the closest developer relationships that we have. It's just, and it's good that they sit together with Fat Shark, who are producing War of the Roses for us. So it's. Yeah, we get a lot of synergies of having developers in the same place. So soon we're going to tell you what Arrowhead is actually up to now. They're being kind of secret about things that aren't Magicka, but they have some aces up their sleeve for the months to come as well.
Because it would be easy to assume that, you know, with a success like Magicka, you do some DLC and then the inevitable Magicka 2, but that's not really, doesn't seem like the road you're taking.
It doesn't seem like that, no, and Magica is going to continue to be a big franchise for us in the coming 5 years, and we have big plans for it. But there's no immediate plans for a Magica 2.
So you made a couple of announcements, 3 I think this year, as opposed to like 7 last year, and we talked about the fact that you're focusing. You're doing more games than ever, but this event is a little bit more focused. But could you talk through us about these new announcements that you're making, and sort of what kind of audience these will have?
Yeah, Napoleon's Campaigns 2 is a really interesting take because it's the first time our French studio Ageshot or Paradox France is using the Clausewitz engine, the one that we're using for Europa Universalis and Hearts of Iron. And they have a very in-depth tactical knowledge on how to make really great tactical games, and we are very eager to see what they can do with the Clausewitz engine. I think we're going to see a great game when it releases. A Game of Dwarfs is from the beginning a great name with a tagline, "Can you dig it?" I was sold already on that. And classic management game, you can see references to several titles that has been released in the past. There are crafting elements, there are like indirect control elements of the dwarves, and you manage them as they dig down into their doom. Why do they always delve too deep? Was the first tagline actually that we scrapped, but that's part of the gameplay as well.
And it's made by the Dwarven specialists.
They have turned into the dwarf specialists of Sweden since they released the game Dwarfs last year, and we wanted to keep like the feeling that they created, make it more maybe accessible, but still is kind of a hardcore game, but it's kind of more accessible. It's very beautiful. It has its own style. It's made in 3D as opposed to the 2D that they used. So it's a big step forward, and the budget is light years from what they used to in Dwarfs. So we're going to see a lot.
Seems it's not just the perspective; it's a very different kind of game as well.
Absolutely, it's a different kind of game. It's more a management game and almost an action game. The previous one, more an arcade game. And the third announcement obviously was Magica, other side of the coin, and you can see where the inspirations come from in the art, and there are some spoofs in there that real gamers are going to appreciate.
And there was a joke made of Magica on consoles, but you sort of seem to be moving away a little bit from perhaps the PSN, Xbox Live Arcade, even though a game of Dwarfs is been targeted for PSN. What is it about these platforms that you don't find that appealing?
I find the platforms very appealing. It's just that it's kind of tough to get your games submitted as a third party. We don't produce any box games for Xbox or PlayStation, so we don't have an immediate access to their download channels. And that causes we have to put a lot of work into actually creating XBLA and PSN games, and not only the work of producing the game, but the paperwork connected to it as well. So. And PC games these days sell just as many games as the XBLA games do. I would love to be an XBLA as well. So we're still pushing Microsoft, and I hope we can announce something before the end of the year. But you know how it is with me and promises. I told you this morning, I haven't been good at keeping them lately, so I won't promise you anything.
So like for a small indie title, would you say that the paperwork and the extra work is just as big as actually making the game?
Not as big, no, but it's always like if you have the risk of failing completely and not get out at all, like if fail a submission or something, then the risk is a bit too high for us, even if there's a 5% chance that we're going to miss like a submission. Then you've put all the work into something, and then you're not really like passing through. So PC is an open platform, same for iOS, Android. It's easier to publish the games there, it's easier to control the process yourself. So overall, it's more appealing, but I would still love to be in the consoles. Like PSN, we're working with a few games on there, and XBLA would be great.
So you mentioned iOS and Android. Are you looking at more opportunities there?
We are, definitely. It's a part of the ubiquitous gaming experience that you can play the same game on several different platforms. If you take the games from Paradox Development Studios, Hearts of Iron, Europa Universalis, they match perfectly with the iPad or with the tablet computing. So you should expect to see more in that direction. The point and click screen, or whatever you call them, the tablet screens. So we're actually looking into experimenting, seeing what we can do, but there's nothing finalized yet. But expect us to be more in that area in the future.
And one promise you did make at the press conference is that the next generation will be the last generation of consoles, which is kind of a big promise to make. But we've been hearing certain similar sentiments from some Gaikai representatives and on live. I think the quote was even that we'll only see one more console, big console, come out next generation. But do we really need to put a term console or not these days? Are we moving into an area where perhaps you don't need to put a label like that?
I don't think we need to put a label on that. In 5 to 10 years at least, it's going to be smart TVs. It's going to be all about the OS on the smart TVs or on the tablet or whatever. So you're going to see Android, you're going to see iOS, you're going to see Windows perhaps as the big OSs that you want to get into. And whoever wins that battle, that's going to be very interesting to see. It looks like Apple is really strong at the moment, but anything can happen in that market. I mean, as late as 2007, no one had heard the word iPhone, and now it's a huge part of the gaming market. So with all the technology shifts, you should always be a bit careful with bold statements. I know I can be a bit bold at times, but at least the consoles, the piece of hardware they represent, are totally unnecessary in 5 years. So that much I think we can already say. But whoever takes over the smart TV scene and like App Store directly into the TV, that's going to be a very interesting thing. And we want to be at the forefront when that war takes place. So that's going to be great to follow.
Any predictions for 2012?
I think we're going to grow around 75% again on gross revenue, and I think profit is going to go up as well. So that much I can say. At least 50%, that's my promise. I think we're going to release some really good games this year.
Which one is your favorite release of the year that you can talk about?
My dark horse, we only sign games that we want to play ourselves, so it's really hard to pick one. But the dark horse I have among the games that we are releasing in the coming 8 months is Warlock, Master of the Arcane, because it's kind of hardcore. It mixes a lot of elements from Civilization and Master of Magic that people recognize, but it has been flying under the radar so far, so many people haven't seen it. But once you start playing it, you're just stuck. I played for 72 turns the other day, and when I should have been reading contracts.
On a really large map?
On a really large map, and I kind of dominated the world because I always play on easy, so I win the games because I'm a really bad loser. So it's going to turn out to be a great game. That's at least the hopes that I have.